Okay, guys, so since I started uploading videos, I've been getting a lot of questions about like how did I get my job at Netflix or what country I'm from and things like that. So I decided I was gonna just make a video telling you all about my art journey from when I started drawing to high school to college, not having a job, to getting my job at Netflix and to teaching. So I'm gonna start from the very beginning. So you could probably just listen to this while you're drawing, or watch the entire video. It's totally up to you. But it's gonna be a bit long, so hopefully maybe there's some information in here that could help you, or maybe just entertain you. So here goes. I have been drawing ever since I could remember, and it's that's very cliche to say, right? So I've been drawing ever since I could remember, but the thing that maybe I remember drawing the most when I was a kid was Saturday morning cartoons and things like, the old X-Men and He-Man and stuff like that. And then during Saturday morning cartoons, I think maybe when I was like around 7 or 8 years old, I was introduced to my first anime, which was Technoman Blade. And the first time I saw that, I was like blown away because it was never anything like the Western style cartoons that we've been watching, for a long time. It was like a serious, dark story, and it was super cool. And I remember like every time we saw a new episode, or every time we saw the character transform into like a new version or a new enemy would come, me and my brother would always like try and like draw the characters from the show. And I think that was the time I remember the most, just drawing a single subject a lot. And after that series had ended, there was another Japanese anime that aired on TV, which was called Samurai X. And this one was just as cool, or even cooler, than Technoman. The characters, the story, and again, me and my brother would like always just draw and draw these characters over and over and over and over and over. And we draw so much that even at like primary school, you'd be drawing these characters so much and drawing them all the time that you become known as the kid that could draw, right? So I think maybe from either standard one or like early infants, I became the art kid in the class, and I would be the one that would always be drawing. And the more anime I discovered, like Dragon Ball Z and all these other cool anime, Digimon, Card Captors, Escaflowne, all of those anime and stuff, I would just like draw them, and early on, I never really thought as if I could be like an artist. I didn't even think about like, oh, I want to create these anime. I want to be a part of that. No, that was like so far away from me that I didn't even consider it. Early on, I was probably thinking of, okay, since I like to draw, I could probably be an architect. I could have like a nice office. I could get to draw and design buildings and stuff. That I could see myself doing something like that. And as I got older, maybe like 9 or 10 or 11, I still probably still wanted to be an architect. But at that time, I was starting to get into video games. So I think the first PS1 had come out, and that was the first console I got. I don't think it was the first console I got introduced to, but it was the first console that I got, a present from my granddad. And at that time, I was like, oh, video games are so cool. I wonder if there's like an opportunity to kind of like work in video games. So that became something I was kind of leaning more towards. And I was like, oh, I would love to be a part of the video game industry, because there seems to be some of art department or something in there. So being part of the animation industry again was totally far from my mind. I didn't even know that was something that was even possible. And then I graduated from primary school and went into secondary school. And again, I was immediately assigned the kid who could draw in class because, they discover you once you like drawing diagrams in biology and stuff, and everybody realized that you could draw really good. You become the art kid in class. So again, you become that person. Because my country doesn't have like a lot of opportunities for artists, I didn't really take my art seriously. I only did it as like a hobby. And there was one time, maybe when I was 13 or 14, I tried selling drawings at my secondary school, and that completely failed. I either wasn't good enough, or like kids just didn't see like buying drawings would be, with the money. So I went through like 5 years of secondary school. I didn't even, take art as a subject during my time at secondary school, but last minute I decided I was going to write the exam, and I wrote the exam, and I didn't actually get a good grade after writing CXE, which is like the Caribbean art exam for people in my country and the Caribbean. It's kind of like graduating high school exam, and I didn't do so good, and because I was spending more time, on maths and English and all of those science subjects and stuff, and just trying to get like general education. And so when secondary school was done, I was kind of like in a place where I was like, what now? Like, what do I do now? Like, I haven't heard about like any kind of like art program or anything like that. And I really wasn't sure if I should go and, maybe try and be an architect, or try and find some art program, or something like that. And there was a period after high school where I was just kind of like home, and I took like a Photoshop type short course. And the reason I knew about Photoshop is because my brother and sister were graphic designers. And that's how I kind of knew about Photoshop. And I saw them like creating like graphics with like anime and doing like these wallpaper type stuff. And I thought that was like really, really cool. So I said, you know what, I'll probably go and learn Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff like that. And there was a point where maybe after that where I found out that there was this kind of relatively new animation program in one of the colleges here in Trinidad. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna apply and try and get in. And for some reason or for some circumstances, I wasn't able to attend the interview. You needed to do an interview to get in the course, and I was out of the country at the time, and I couldn't reschedule the interview, and I didn't go into that animation course, and I was kind of disappointed. So after that, my mom found a program on visual arts in another college in Trinidad, and it had nothing to do with animation, but more like design and visual arts and traditional type of art. So I went there, and I spent like maybe 6 years there doing like a pre-course and then into the degree. And for me personally, I didn't really learn anything with regards to animation or anything with even just getting better at drawing. It was stuff more with like craft and building costumes and modern art and stuff like that. And for me, I was just feeling like I would just do this, and while I'm doing this, I would try to figure out exactly, what are my next steps after I finish this. And so during that time, I kind of started to fall in love with movies slowly and gradually, but it wasn't anything serious. And my love for anime continued. I used to watch Naruto, etc. during college and stuff. And I just went through college, just kind of just going through college. And then after I finished college, Actually, let me go back. There was one program in college, was an elective, and it was called Film and Video. And the class was basically just showing you how to use like After Effects and stuff like that. And so I decided I was just gonna like create like a little type of short animated thing, and that was kind of fun. I had to do like the storyboard and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. And I realized like wow, this was like super fun to like do the storyboard and do all the uh animation and After Effects and coloring and stuff, and actually showing it to the class, and people actually liking it and stuff. And um I'm not really sure if that's when I really decided I want to be somebody who works in animation. It could have been before that, it could have been after, but maybe that was like a really important moment. But after college, um, I was back in a place where I felt like right after um, high school, where I'm like, what now? What do I do now? There's like all the things that I'm interested in doing in America or in some foreign country, and I felt as though like there's no possible way for me to actually get to those countries because my parents are basically like middle class. They cannot pay for me to go to college in the States and stuff. So that was totally out of the question. And so again, I was in a period where I'm like just at home, just drawing. At this point, I was like on DeviantArt a lot, and that was kind of like my home. Just watching artists on DeviantArt, trying to learn from them, trying to take tutorials from DeviantArt tutorials, and learning digital art. Learning to use a tablet and trying to do commissions. And yeah, I did that like for a while, and maybe like almost half a year or maybe a year. And then I just happened to like visit my sister in Canada. And while I was there, I was on YouTube and I was watching a Steven Silver video, and he was talking about how he was going to be doing a schoolism live event in Toronto. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. Like, I don't know when I'll be in Toronto again. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take whatever money I have and buy entry or tickets to go to the schoolism event. It was like a weekend. I think it was like the first schoolism event that happened in Toronto, a live event. And so I went there, and they had like different speakers. They had like Claire Wendling and Brenda Chapman and Kevin Lima, who directed Disney's Tarzan. They had like Mingju, Helen Chen, and stuff, and everybody was like giving like a presentation, and it was super cool. And this was the first time I was around so many artists who were interested in the animation industry, or just like that pop culture industry. And it was super cool. And the great thing about that event, it was the event where Bobby Chu, who a lot of you may know as the creator of Lightbox Expo, he introduced schoolism online subscription, which is where you pay maybe just 25 US and you could take the classes on there. And at the time, because it was a launch, he had an offer where it was like 300 US and you could have schoolism for like 2 years. And I was like, that is so awesome, because there were so many professionals giving classes on schoolism. So I took my money and I subscribed immediately. At that point, when I had came back from visiting my sister, I had this feeling of like the feeling that I probably would have had if I was able to go to like an animation school like Carl Arts or Goblins or Sheridan or something like that. I felt like I finally had access to the knowledge that I have been searching for. And I decided at the time I was gonna just start at the bottom, the first class schoolism I had, and just work my way through all of them. So I studied color and light from DICE. I studied introduction to drawing. I studied character design, I think, but from Daniel Arriaga. I studied a character design from Walter Taub. I just pretty much took every single class that I could before my subscription would be done. And that was a period where I was just like super focused and super engaged. And one of the classes that I also took was Introduction to Storyboarding by Chris Poon. And that class was one of the classes that lit a fire in me and made me realize that I really like storyboarding, because I've only dabbled in storyboarding, but I've never had like a proper teacher up to that point. And those classes kind of like took me behind the scenes of like what story artists do and how they create their work and how they're behind all of the really important information that goes into making a film. And this is something that really, really connected with me. And so I did those classes. I created my first storyboards in that class, and it was super, super awesome. And there was a opportunity to go to Jamaica. Somebody asked me to join a team to go to Jamaica for a animation festival called Kingston Festival in Jamaica. And they asked me to go, I think, as a storyboard artist or character designer. I can't remember. But they saw my work on Facebook, I think, at the time, and they asked me to join the team. And I was like, okay, cool. So everything was all expense paid. We headed over to Jamaica, and we had to basically prepare a pitch and pitch it to industry professionals, and basically they would give us feedback on like the pitch. So the pitch was like for like a kids animated TV show, and there were like 4 or 5 different pitches, and the winner of the pitch would, I can't remember, they would win something, whether it's money or whether it's a trip to go to another festival to pitch that. And yeah, so that was a really interesting time, because I met a lot of people there that I call friends now, and people who have actually led me to have more opportunities. And one of the organizers of that festival had posted something on Facebook after the festival about an opportunity to go to South Korea to be an intern at a animation studio over there. But basically what you had to do was you had to submit your portfolio for the categories. So the categories were like storyboarding, character design, I think it was like environment design or animation and stuff like that. And initially it was only for citizens of Jamaica, but because the Koreans felt that a lot of the standard of the people submitting wasn't high enough, the organizer decided to open it up for the entire Caribbean. And I was able to kind of submit in the storyboarding category. And lo and behold, a few months after, I got a call from the organizer, and he said that the studio had chosen me to be in the storyboarding department of the studio, and that I would get like the scholarship to pay for the flight and everything to go to South Korea. Now, the studio at that in South Korea was called Funny Flux Animation, and they created the IP known as Super Wings, which is kind of like some flying robots that help kids deliver their packages and then solve problems and stuff like that. So that was a really exciting time. I think that was in 2017. I had got my visa and everything, and I headed over there to work at Funny Flux. And When I got there, we were assigned our lead or our manager who would kind of like train us. And basically, because the studio was so hectic, we didn't actually really get any training. We were just kind of like there, just kind of like, you know, learning based on like seeing what everyone was doing and stuff like that. And it was my first kind of like work environment. I think I was like 24 at the time. And like the way that they storyboard was very different from the way I learned to storyboard, because I was kind of leaning towards more feature animation, and they were more in the TV style of drawing, and I really struggled to draw the way that they would draw, because it was like clean and crisp, and they would like, erase the line if it's not perfect, that kind of like draw, erase, draw, erase, draw, erase kind of thing. And I was more loose and messy and stuff, and that style didn't suit their studio at all. But I learned a lot from that experience. I learned a lot about the pipeline, because I would like go around to the different departments and like talk to the animation people, talk to the background people, the sculpting people. I became really good friends with the production managers and stuff. I used to hang out with them like a lot. Um, Apart from like my storyboarding team, and the people in the studio, a lot of them could have spoken English, which was really really good. So the language barrier wasn't that bad, and I stayed there for like about close to 7 months, and it was a really good experience. Made some good friends and stuff. I still kind of keep in touch with them now and again. So when I came back from that experience, again, I realized I was in a situation where I was like after high school or after secondary school and university, where I was like, okay, what now? What opportunities do I have now? What should I do now? And I think during that time, I was watching a lot of videos about like entrepreneurship, and not waiting for opportunity. You have to make opportunities happen for you. So I decided, you know what? What are ways I could actually make money with the skills I have now? So I was thinking there's no kind of animation or production or demand for storyboarding in my country, and there's probably not much clients I could get with foreign clients. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna start a business where I draw like people's portraits and do caricatures at events. And I started like this whole business where I was doing that. So I would go to like parties, I would go to weddings majority, and I would just draw people on the spot. And I kind of had to learn about advertising and business and registering a business and stuff like that, and trying to get more clients, you know, and being more of like a people person, and talking on the phone and interacting with people on the spot, drawing and talking to people at the same time, making them feel comfortable and stuff like that. So it was a learning experience. It was a character building experience, and I did that for about maybe 2 or 3 years. I was doing that for about 2 or 3 years. And then, while I was doing that, the pandemic decided that it was going to hit. Now, because that business revolved around events, people were not having their weddings, people were not having birthday parties, etc. So I decided, okay, we'll try and wait to see if this pandemic is over, and then we'll go back to that if not, right? But during the pandemic, I was on Instagram and I saw that Brainstorm was having a class on storyboarding, and it was being taught by Stephanie Stein, who directed Kung Fu Panda 4. And I said, you know what? It's expensive. I think it was like $800 or $900 at the time. It's expensive, but you know what? I could still afford it. And I decided to take that class, and I'm so glad that I took that class, because I learned so much from that class, and I made so many connections with the students in that class. And after like taking that class, like my storyboarding skills just like went like this, right? It was like this and it just went like this, right? And I hadn't done storyboarding for a very long time. I hadn't storyboarded anything like since the internship in South Korea. So like it took a while for me to actually get back into the groove, but um, it just rekindled my love for storyboarding, and I was like, wow, I think I'm getting really really good at this. So after I took that class, I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna try and do a new sequence every month. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna do that. And the first sequence I did after Stephanie's class was a bear sequence that you probably see in my storyboard portfolio. If for those of you who haven't seen it, you could go and check it out. And I did that sequence. And after I did that sequence, I was like, wow, this sequence helped me grow even more than the sequences that I did in Stephanie's class. And I was super, super confident in my ability. And I was like, maybe instead of just doing like random stories in my uh, storyboarding on my portfolio, how about I just write an entire feature film and try and do 5 minutes of the feature film every month in boards? And that was something crazy because at the time I realized that I'm probably not going to get into the animation industry based on where I'm from. And I kind of like accepted that. But what I realized is there's no one stopping me from making my own movie, right? And so I said, screw it, I'm just gonna make my own movie. I'm gonna board an entire movie on my own. And it just made sense to me. We were in a pandemic, I can't go outside, and I just, wanted to start boarding, right? So I started boarding that, and that is the movie I'm currently still making, which is amazing. I'm actually almost done for those of you who are keeping up with that. And I had boarded the first 5 minutes, colored it, toned it, and made it look really good. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm going to really continue doing this. And I did maybe about 13 minutes of the movie. And I was just like super committed to doing that. And when I had got to that portion of the film, I got a message from one of my acquaintances, and they had told me that they had went to I think it was a animation festival or conference in Europe, and they met a recruiter, and they spoke, and he said he was from Trinidad, and the recruiter was like, oh, I'm actually looking for storyboard artists that are from the Caribbean. Do you know anyone? And he actually put my name out to her. And when he messaged me, he told me who she was and her Instagram handle. And he said you should message her and send her a portfolio. So I found her, messaged her, and I told her about my friend who told me about, that they're looking for somebody in Caribbean. And she's like, oh, great. Could you send your portfolio? And at the time, I had my portfolio with like the sequences I did in Stephanie's class and the sequences I did for my movie. And I really didn't think nothing of it because, during my entire time, and I didn't mention this, I had been submitting like portfolios and getting rejection. And I didn't really think anything of it. I was just thinking, oh, maybe she's gonna just see my work and it's probably not gonna be good enough and I'm gonna get rejected. So I was like not really expecting anything. So I just continued boarding on my film. And maybe 2 weeks after sending my portfolio, I got a message from her, or was it from her or Human Resources at Netflix, saying that she showed my work to the director and the head of story, and that they really loved my work and they would love to have a interview or a meeting with me. And I was really surprised. I was like, whoa. Now, at this point, I was excited, but I didn't tell anybody. Like I didn't tell any of my friends. I didn't tell my family because I was like, I don't have the job yet. It's just a meeting. So I had the meeting with the director, and basically he pitched the idea for his film. It was super super cool. Then he had a story, asked me questions about my process and my storyboarding process, and how I work and stuff like that, and Photoshop and a few other like what's your favorite movies kind of thing. It was like a cool like interaction. And after that they say, well, we really, really like you, and hopefully you'll hear from us soon kind of thing, right? And so I waited maybe like a day or two after. I got a message from human resources, and human resources said that the director really loves you and he wants to work with you. Would you like to work on the movie? And I was like, yes. And she organized a meeting where I spoke to a human resource manager basically to kind of discuss my contract and the wages of the contract and stuff like that, right? So this was my first movie. This was like, I was super happy. I went and I tell my family that I got the job, and how much money I would be making, and when you convert the US to my currency, it's like a lot of money. So it was like life changing kind of money. And so that was basically how I got into working for Netflix. And at the time, that was also during the pandemic, where no one was like going into the studio and stuff like that. So they didn't mind, I guess, hiring people overseas. I guess. I guess one of the reasons why they hired me was because I was from the Caribbean, and the movie that we were making was based in the Caribbean. So they probably wanted to get insight about Caribbean people and stuff involved in the story. So I had like a wonderful 3 years working at Netflix, and I met some really awesome story artists. Shout out to my story team, my director, my producer. I had like such a great time. I never had like any issues with the crew or with upper management or anything like that. My experience was great. Production assistants were great. And the thing about working on Netflix for the first time, I never felt as though I was like out of place or had a hard time like keeping up with everyone else and doing the job, because I was working on my own film and doing boards. I was just accustomed with my process, and I just understood what I wanted to do, and then I kind of understood what the director wanted and what to give him, and stuff like that. And it was just like a really great process because I was doing good work. They were a good crew. And initially, I was only supposed to work for Netflix for 2 years because they have this law that says independent contractors can only work for 2 years. But apparently, I was doing such great work for the crew and meeting deadlines and stuff like that that everyone decided to kind of ask the law department at Netflix, I think, what's the situation, if I could move there or if I could continue working from Trinidad and stuff. And they kind of changed some rules specifically for me to kind of just continue working after the 2 years. And I ended up continue working for them for another entire year, which was super super awesome. And unfortunately, because things are not going too well with streaming and stuff, and Netflix is kind of like crunching and not doing as well as they would like, there were a bunch of like cancellations like coming down the pipeline. There were a lot of like close scares where we thought our film was gonna get cancelled in like the second year and stuff, but we were lucky to continue for another year. But unfortunately, in the third year, we did not meet the criteria for the current vice president to continue with our film. So we had a meeting where, an unexpected meeting where the entire crew came, and she told us that the movie was cancelled and they're very sorry and stuff like that. And that's just how the cookie crumbles, but you gotta move on. And yeah, so after Netflix, cancel the film, I just continued teaching, which I completely forgot to to also mention that during the pandemic, when the pandemic had just started, I had also taken a course on how to become a personal mentor for a skill that you specialize in. And I took a course, and they basically showed you how to build your own mentorship. And during the pandemic, I kind of learned how to do that. I built classes, mentorship class, and that was something I was also doing while I was working at Netflix. So I was working at Netflix, and I was also teaching on the side, and I taught like a lot of students during that 3 year period, maybe more than 40 to 50 students at this point. So when Netflix had canceled a film, it wasn't like if I was just like totally like I have no more money, I'm broke, I don't know. I still had my students. I could still make income from my students, and that is where I am currently just relying on to bring in cash while I work on my independent film, The Great Son. So, and since I've also been laid off, I've had time to actually take YouTube a bit more seriously and create some videos for you guys to watch, and hopefully share some information with you guys. So that is basically my art journey. I've probably left out some really important information about my art journey, but I think the stuff that I mentioned here was maybe to me the key things in my art journey that were just like core memories of getting there. And yeah, so but yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and make sure and subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions about my art journey or working for Netflix or anything like that, and I'll make a video. Thank you so much for those of you who got this far in the video, and stay tuned for the next one, because I have a lot of ideas for this YouTube channel, and hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this video. So see you around.